Everybody, go ahead and get started. In case you don't know who I am, Joe Thompson, President. Thank you, Mike. Mike keeps me in line. I'm happy to be here. Got a lot of stuff going on, but hey, 'tis my life as a little league baseball coach and a teacher. But hey, you got to do what you got to do. We got a great program for tonight. Also, I have a few announcements I'd like to make concerning the next couple of months that I think all of you would be interested in, very much so. But as always, when we get started, I like to recognize new members, new guests that we have here. And today, guest of Bob, we have Troy from Tulsa. I think Bob is trying to get you to start a SABR chapter group in Tulsa. And we have Dave from Kingwood. Welcome. All right. So hopefully you like it tonight. We have meetings every month. We're actually having some more things going on that I'll talk about here in a second while we meet a little bit. Where we meet actually twice a month. But let's talk about the Astros first. How about that? It was. Okay, I don't know. I mean, they don't have to play. I mean, you know, technically, even though they swept the series, it feels like they played 4 games, right? I don't know about y'all, but I was telling John, I was at a school event when game 1 was happening, when Jordan hit the home run. I stopped in the parking lot, yelled as loud as I could. Nobody heard me because the windows were down in my truck, but it was something I just couldn't believe it. And I felt like literally at that moment that the series was over. How many times? Oh, I've seen it about 30. 30. Just to hear Robert Ford's call. You know? So a couple of things that I'd like to talk about, I guess, from the series. I don't know what y'all thought of it. In case you don't know, the Astros are now AL record holders. They've been to the ALCS 6 straight times. They beat the record they had previously held, of course, 5 that they shared along with the Oakland Athletics in the early 70s. But the actual record, and we can talk about that as SABR people, the actual record of consecutive league championship series in a row belongs to the Braves. 8. But in the middle of those 8 was the 94 season. They didn't play. So my question is, does the 8 really count? So I don't believe it does. Therefore, the Astros hold the all-time record of LCSs in a row. What? Yeah, Bagwellson got the MVP that year. Okay.
If it's for the Astros, it counts. If it's against the Astros, it doesn't.
So the Bagwell's MVP as well. Game 3, as you all know, was an ALDS record, longest playoff game ever. Somebody watched the entire thing. I was at a event with my dad when the game started. When I got home, my wife and I, we watched another 9 innings. I don't know about y'all, but the person that impressed me the most that game was Luis Garcia. Yeah. I don't know about y'all. What, 4 shutout, just not even 5 shutout, rocking and rolling with this little wind up. That really impressed me. And if we can have that Luis Garcia, I'm happy. 2 hits, wasn't it? Just 2 hits. Yeah, no walk. Yeah, no walk. And in fact, the Astros relievers pitched what, 9 or 11 innings? Is that right? 12. Because when did the colors go out? After 6. After 6, so 12 innings? Okay. I have a question. Hunter went 3, I think. Yeah, Hunter went 3 or 2? No, 2. He went 2. Right.
Underground went too, but I have a question for the group. How many of y'all watching that game thought about the runner on second to start the inning?
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad it wasn't. Glad it wasn't.
Great. You wanted it?
No, I'm no. I'm sorry. What's that?
Kind of long.
Really? It'll be kind of a bummer though. Oh, come on. I mean, to be fair, the Astros were wearing that uniform 17 years ago, 2005. Ironically, the year I met my wife, my future wife, the year I started at U of H, the Astros had another 18-inning postseason game against the Braves that ended with Chris Burke's walk-off. And Roger Clemens pitched in that game. Only relief appearance ever, right? So I just think it's wild. Well, okay. But yeah, it was 0-0, the longest postseason game, especially scoreless game ever.
So. Fine.
How many would have liked the runner on second starting in the extra innings? Is that what you want me to ask? Who's with Mike that wants the runner on second?
Postseason. I don't like it.
No, not for postseason.
If the game started at 7, yeah.
Only
but not-
10. Starting it. Okay. I will say this, and I firmly believe it. And even though the Mariners fans are the Mariners fans, I really respect that team. That's the team that scared me the most at the beginning of the season. And Scott Service has got something going on there. Those pitchers are something else. So I think they're going to be our biggest rival for the next couple of years.
I have one more.
Yes, sir, Mike.
Well, first, first good.
Yeah, but you're not dealing with them on social media.
Okay. What with the shoe on?
I don't know what the shoe with the head. I think that's kind of gross, actually. I don't understand the shoe on the head thing.
Rally shoe? I thought it was an Astros thing, but my wife said it was the rally shoe.
I can understand a rally monkey, but a rally shoe? I don't get that.
Well, who thought that the Dodgers and dogs?
I did.
Yes, we're the only.
I was great.
Huh? You thought the Dodgers would be gone already?
Yes.
Prior, and I've watched a few of the Padres, and they figured things out since the trade deadline. Mainly in September, they seem to figure some things out, which is one of the reasons I love this format, because I think it's going to be good for baseball for all teams to look at really pushing themselves at the end, rather than having, maybe 5 or 10 that are fairly certain, and the rest just kind of lag, and they don't pay for it, they don't do anything at the trade deadline, they don't try to make business better. And no, I think this rewards teams who figure things out at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's not the Phillies to be in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Phillies are probably the biggest surprise. Yeah. So who would you, if we go to the World Series, who would you rather play? The Phillies?
Phillies.
Or the
I
Padres?
think Padres are gonna be tough.
I would rather play the Padres because of Joe Musgrove's comment.
What did he say?
I feel bad every time I wear that ring now. The 2017 ring.
He said it.
He's the only one he ever did.
He basically said that. I feel like I need to win, almost saying I need to win an honest one. So basically, by saying that, I want Joe Musgrove. Just me, but the Phillies would be easier.
And you can see Juan Soto.
Yeah. It's
I was kind of hoping for a New York and Dodgers one just to say Danny Natty Boo Boo to all the other people as
We've been there, didn't you?
Yeah. Jordan really going nuts.
Well,
But where's Altuve? I mean, what?
oh, don't worry about it.
He makes me think of Springer. Remember, Springer was kind of dead through not doing much in 2017, and everybody kept saying, "Why do you keep having lead off and all that?" And then in the World Series, he just took off. So I think Altuve's too good. He won't. They line.
Your time was what, 2 for 50 last year in the playoffs?
Yeah, something crazy. Yeah.
So-
But what about training? We didn't have none of these, none of them, every one of them, he was in the middle of.
Yeah,
Exactly, yeah.
right. We don't need Correa back. So he's not gonna be a Twin next year. He's probably gonna be a Yankee. I don't know.
I mean, you don't want to.
Yeah, we don't want him. In case you don't know, the playoff schedule is Wednesday and Thursday, and depending on what happens tonight with the Yankees and Guardians, that should be very interesting. How long do you think that's gonna go before they push it another day? The game tonight, that's already delayed.
Pouring down.
They're pouring down up there, so if they have to play Tuesday, I don't think they're gonna bump game 1 of the LCS, so it's an advantage for the Astros, I think.
If you don't play a West Coast team in the World Series, you're gonna have weather problems. At Philadelphia, at Cleveland,
Right?
or wherever it is.
Yeah.
They're going to be cold.
In case you weren't here last month, Chris Rawls gave an excellent presentation, the Portable Houston Baseball Museum. That was great, learned a lot. Also, Gloria, all of us that went to Saber 50, we shared some of our photos. So if you haven't had a chance to watch the video, if you weren't here last month, all the videos are available on YouTube. Okay, so go back and watch them all. All right.
What are they under? Are they all under
The Larry
chapter?
Dierker Houston SABR chapter. We have our own little page. We have videos of all our meetings going back to when we first started this with COVID. So going all the way back to 2020. So you could literally, have a marathon of meetings going back 2 years if you wanted to watch them. On Saturday, October the 8th, we had our first Meet the New Chapter members meeting. It was a nice little just gab session, as Mike liked to call it. It was great. I liked it. There were some problems with the settings, so a couple of people weren't able to get in. I've gone in and fixed that. But you were there, Patrick, right? What did you think of it?
I thought it was great, and as someone who's new to there and there,
Yeah.
it was nice just to talk and, yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't remember Patrick is from upstate New York, right? Yeah. Right. So, and now he's a diehard Astros fan. All right, especially after these last the last series. Wes Pierce from the Woodlands was there. So I got an email today from Gavin, I think another one of the newest members, who asked me if we're going to have another Meet the New Chapter members in November. So I was going to have just like a little meeting on November the 12th, where we could all just get together and talk on Saturday morning, like at 11 o'clock, kind of like a Saturday baseball chat. I know some people Monday doesn't work for them, but maybe a Saturday thing would. But since Gavin asked, I'm going to say, yeah, we'll do this again on November the 12th on Saturday morning, 11 o'clock. We'll have a little just baseball chat or whatever. Gavin wants to show up. We'll have him meet everybody. I wanted to do this every other month, but like the next one I really thought about planning would be for December, but he specifically asked me right before the meeting, about an hour and a half ago, if we could have one in November, because he didn't get a chance to come to the last one. So we can do that, at least just to meet Gavin. Yeah.
So since we're the Larry Durst chapter, did you already book the hot stove lead? Right, is that how you book?
Who, Dirk?
How about the hot stove? Hot stove is a term used for baseball fans.
Right.
But during the winter, remember baseball originated in the Northeast, cold during the winter, and the men, they'd be out in the shed around the hot stove, talking about the next year. Maybe, so this is Larry's chapter. We call these the hot stove get together.
Yeah, it's yeah, we can do that, and it's very informal. There's none of this. I mean, it's just
Did you say
talking
wrote a
point.
book?
I thought that was the title of this book.
I thought it was, it's not brain sick.
Yeah, there's that one.
Two books. That means race. What's my name? Already.
It's all right.
Oh,
Our next scheduled meeting is kind of up in the air now. All right, it was supposed to be November the 14th. Question I have, if we have to push it to Tuesday the 15th, would that be a problem? With anybody?
Probably works.
Apparently it's already booked. So, I originally thought it was gonna be the 21st, but after talking with Bob, that is Thanksgiving week. We do have that option available. But again, all this is up to our guest. Our special guest is supposed to be Terry Poole. Yes, that Terry Poole. So, stay tuned. Okay? We have to move some things around. We're looking for a speaker in December. In January 16th, our first guest of the year will be Allison Footer. Okay, MLB writer. A former writer for the Astros. Right, Bob?
Social media director.
So, sorry, social media director. That's in January. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're still looking for somebody to take over the recording secretary for Marcia. I know Herb loves what he's doing right now. So anybody want to volunteer, just let me know. Tony wanted to say a few things about the newsletter. So Tony, take it away.
all right, we're gonna try to get a newsletter out. John, by the way, I found your email.
You got it.
I got it. And they're,
I gave you like 6.
they're great. They're great. We now have a quiz. So if somebody has something you'd like to write about, either about the playoffs, about the Astros season, about life in general. It's
So the new letter-
that kind of,
What's the cutoff say?
What's the cutoff date?
see, this is October.
It's October 17th.
November 17th or October 17th, we had bullshit revolution.
Oh, I don't know.
Would you like that? Yeah.
We'll do it, but we need material.
Okay.
That'd be something, try to get out by Halloween. Or All Saints Day.
Or All Saints Day, right?
Research.
Okay. So send something to Tony by this Friday.
Yeah, well, by the way, I want to tell you briefly, I was in England. In the UK for a few weeks last month. And I ran into a guy at Oxford University. By the name of Joe Burton. And Joe is now Chicago. But he worked with this fellow used to do all the George Plimpton. He wrote books about Paper Lion or something else where he have all these guns. Well, he editor of the Sports Illustrated told him that their next edition was going to be on April 1st, 1985. So they did an April 1st, April Fool's Day article. And something wrote something up about a picture by the name of Sid Finch. I don't know how many people remember it, but apparently he was an extravagant ball player that commits a sign. Nobody had heard of him. And they made it very believable, and everybody was trying to figure out what Sid Finch was from. It's all thinking of something imagination. And this fellow Joe Burton he took photographs posing as Sid Finch himself. And he's an engaging guy. We'll have him at some point to talk to us on Zoom. If I can persuade you to do that. He's really interesting, forward and funny. And there we were in Oxford University talking about the merits of the 1985 New York Mets. It seems like it's not great. But it's wonderful, sure, but he's an engaging guy. And there's something on Google about all this.
Yeah, I think Sid Finch was in the same boat been with Mel Faney.
So, Joe, thanks for indulging me a little bit.
Hey, no problem. No problem. And on that note, I will turn the meeting over to our special guest, Dan Taylor. Dan, well, I'm real excited to hear this presentation. Dan's a former award-winning television broadcaster or sportscaster and is the television broadcaster for the Fresno Grizzly. Okay. He's a SABR member. He contributes to the biography project. Speaking of that, a lot of us, any of you SABR members, you can contribute to many things SABR has going on, including the biography project. He's a member of the Pacific Coast League Historical Society. And he's the author of this book, Walking Alone, The Untold Journey of Football Pioneer Kenny Washington. Now, this is a baseball meeting, right? Well, Dan's talk tonight will focus on the baseball career of Kenny Washington, and he calls it the Almost Jackie. Okay? It's the story of it's the baseball part of Washington's life. The 3 times he was at the center of efforts to integrate baseball, and how Jackie Robinson tried to persuade Branch Rickey to also sign Kenny Washington. And his brief post-football stint with the New York Giants and PCL's Angels. So Dan, without further ado, it is you.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with all of you again. I wish I could be there in person. Last time I think I was with you, we talked about these guys, and no, this is not an alternate Houston Astros cap, the Hollywood Stars cap from the 1940s. And we do have a lot of Astros fans here in Fresno from the times that Fresno was the Pacific Coast League AAA affiliate of the Astros. So a lot of fans here that are certainly following them in the postseason. I'm going to bring up my PowerPoint and try to share the screen. Make sure I've got this right. Okay. Here we go. All right. So I've called this the Almost Jackie, the story of football pioneer Kenny Washington, but we are not going to be talking football. Well, just a little bit, but it's from the book Walking Alone, The Untold Journey of Football Pioneer Kenny Washington. And when I ask people, who was Kenny Washington? Well, if this is the look on your face right now, you're not alone. In fact, when I started this project, I'll admit that was partly my look. I had to go to a lot of different resources for help, and one of them, believe it or not, was Groucho Marx.
For those who don't follow football, this is one of the legendary names in the game. No, this one. This is Mr. Washington, the first man to ever throw a dollar across the Potomac River. For those who don't follow football, this is one of the legendary.
So here's a quick football look at Kenny Washington. And for those of you that don't know a lot about him, he played in the 30s and 40s. And Hall of Famers who saw him firsthand said he was the greatest player that ever wore a pair of shoulder pads. He had the speed to get to the outside and run away from defenders, had tremendous strength and power to run off tackle. And what Groucho Marx alluded to was his throwing arm. This is a touchdown pass he threw to Jackie Robinson in a 1939 game with Washington State. Kenny Washington could throw a football 100 yards in the air. He was a remarkable talent. Now, when I got into this project, I knew very little about him. I knew that he was a star at UCLA and was the star of their undefeated team in 1939. And then he and Jackie Robinson were played in the same backfield in that 39 season. They were a year apart in school. And that Kenny reintegrated the National Football League in 1946 when he joined the Los Angeles Rams. But what really amazed me when I got into this was to find that there was a whole different side of Kenny Washington that I and a lot of people knew nothing about, and that was his baseball side. And Groucho will explain.
Were you active in other sports besides football when you were in college?
Yes, Groucho. I played baseball. In fact, I believe that truly was my first love.
In fact, Kenny's background, his father. Now, he and his father didn't have a very good relationship. His father really was out of the home most of his life. But his father played part of the 1916 season with the Chicago American Giants in the Negro League. And then when the Kansas City Monarchs began playing in 1920, his father was their original first baseman, and he played maybe about half the season before being let go by the Monarchs. As for Kenny, Kenny really first surfaced in terms of notoriety in Los Angeles in baseball. And it was the 1934 spring. He was the star of this team at Lincoln High School. And Lincoln High and Fremont High were the two big powers that season in baseball. It was no big deal for Fremont High to be the power. They had won the city title several years in a row. But for Lincoln High, it was really unique because they were a sports minnow. Lincoln High was really well known for its academics and its drama program. They sent a lot of great actors into the profession, Robert Young being one of them. But in the 34 spring, Fremont High was powered by a sophomore, a third baseman by the name of Bobby Dorr. And Lincoln High was powered by a sophomore, their 15-year-old shortstop, Kenny Washington. And these two players dueled for the city batting title as 15-year-old sophomores. Dorr edged out Washington just by a fraction of points, but Washington was the home run champ. He had tremendous power. They did not crown a champion that year because there was a tuberculosis outbreak in Los Angeles, and they shut down sports with about 2 weeks to go in the high school baseball season. At the end of that season, Bobby Dorr, just 16 at that time, signed a professional contract. He walked off the Fremont High campus as a sophomore and moved into the Pacific Coast League. And after a season or two in the PCL, was signed by the Boston Red Sox, had a tremendous big league career with the Red Sox, ultimately Hall of Famer, while Kenny Washington was denied the opportunity to pursue a professional baseball career. Kenny then enrolled at UCLA, and in his sophomore season, 1938, he was the star shortstop for the Bruins. He only played the one season there at UCLA. One of his teammates, Al Martell, the third baseman on that team, said, "I've never seen an arm like that on any ball player, like a howitzer." The first baseman on that team, Bill Gray, later played for the Hollywood Stars in the Coast League. And it was said that on close plays, when Kenny really had to cut loose, Gray would hop up and down. He'd throw his glove off and hop up and down with intense pain in his hand from taking the throws from Kenny. Kenny was the first African-American to play baseball at UCLA in that 1938 season. He hit .409, which was second best in the league. He was leading the league with a couple of weeks to go in the season. He contracted the flu, was hospitalized for a few nights, and his hitting tapered off over those last couple of weeks. He was the all-conference shortstop. He had a legendary home run in April of that season. This is Sunken Diamond at Stanford. It's where Stanford still plays to this day. And in a game with UCLA and the Cardinal, Kenny got a hold of one. He was a right-handed hitter, and he took one out over the right center field wall. And the players, the outfielders, said the ball was still rising as it left, and they estimated the length of the blast at 450 feet. For decades, they said it was the longest home run ever hit there at that ballpark. The sports editor of the San Francisco Examiner, Prescott Sullivan, wrote of Kenny late that season, leading hitter, best shortstop in the college baseball out our way is Kenny Washington of UCLA. Coaches of other teams say he has major league ability, but big league scouts are not interested in him. Washington is a Negro. Whenever UCLA and the University of California would meet in baseball, there was a lot of added attention on the game. And the reason for that was both of those schools, the baseball team sported the best player on the football team, in this case, Kenny Washington for UCLA, and Sam Chapman, an outfielder and a running back for Cal. Washington ended up the second leading hitter in the league with a .409 average. Chapman was 14th in the league with a .340 average. But just like in Washington's high school experience, at the end of that season, Sam Chapman was signed by the Philadelphia A's. Connie Mack gave him a bonus, really at the urging of Ty Cobb, who saw a lot of his games. And Sam Chapman walked right off the Berkeley campus and into the major league starting lineup and never spent a day in the minor leagues. Washington and Jackie Robinson, a lot's been talked about their time at UCLA, their relationship, and there's been a number of things that have been written about them that are erroneous. And one is that they were baseball teammates. They were not. Kenny only played his sophomore year, 1938. The reasons he only played 1 year, they couldn't scrape together enough players in 37 at UCLA to field a freshman team. And then in 39, the football team came back late from a bowl game in Hawaii, and the football coaches arranged a really good paying job for Washington at Warner Brothers Studios. So he passed on playing baseball. And he looked at baseball much the way he looked at football, that he was never going to have an opportunity to play it for a living after UCLA. So he really didn't take it too seriously. And of course, his senior season, he had other opportunities, and he took those instead of coming back and playing his senior year. That year would have teamed him with Jackie Robinson. Jackie played only that season. He transferred into UCLA in the fall of 39. So he played baseball for the Bruins in the spring of 40, but chose to leave school after the 1940 football season. He needed to support his mother and got a job. Didn't come back to play a second season of baseball for the Bruins. Interestingly, Washington's full season average, now we mentioned 409 is his average in conference. Over the full season, Washington hit 397 in 1938. In 1940, Jackie hit 097. In fact, of the four sports he played at UCLA, most said that the worst was baseball, believe it or not. Yet he went on to have a tremendous Hall of Fame career. Washington was asked after his playing days were done, his greatest thrill in sports, and it surprised everyone when he said that it was a game that was played in this stadium. This is Old Wrigley Field in Los Angeles, home to the minor league Angels, and the Major League Angels in their first season as an expansion team played here. But it was not a football game that Washington played here. It was a baseball game that Washington played here. And back in through the 20s and just a little past the war years, they had an integrated league, winter league in Los Angeles. And they would have all white teams and all black teams. And the guy in charge of the league would actively go out and recruit the Negro leagues to send players. And they sent some of their best players. Cool Papa Bell, Double Duty Ratcliffe. They came and played. And what they would do is before the season began, they would have an all-star game, an all-black all-star team against an all-white all-star team. And they would play here in Wrigley Field. And each year, they would go out and recruit, the head of this league would go out and recruit a big name major leaguer to come in and be the headliner for the game. And in 1942, they invited Satchel Paige to come in and be the headliner for the game. And just days before the game, he sent with his regrets that he couldn't come. He had pitched in every single game in that year's Negro World Series. And he said his arm was sore and he was tired and he wasn't going to be able to play in the game. So they were a little perplexed and scrambling to come up with a headliner. And they invited Kenny Washington. Now, he had not played competitive baseball in 4 years, not since that 38 season at UCLA. But they brought him in, they put him on the all-black team as their second baseman and batted him third in the lineup. When he came up in the first inning, Larry French was pitching for the white team. And Larry French that season had gone 14-5 for the Brooklyn Dodgers and tossed a couple of scoreless innings in the All-Star game. Washington came up in the bottom of the first inning and planted a ball in the back row of the bleachers in right center field there in Wrigley Field. And he called this his biggest thrill in sports, hitting a home run off of a Major League All-Star pitcher. Rod Dedeaux, who years later was the legendary coach at the University of Southern California, said of that day, Washington could really slug the ball. French just stood there shaking his head. 3 times, Kenny Washington was at the center of efforts to integrate baseball. And they ranged from the really nonsensical to the pretty serious efforts. The nonsensical came in 1940, just a few weeks after he had played his last game at UCLA. And Larry McPhail, then the president of the Brooklyn Dodgers, loved to come out in January for the opening of the horse racing season in Los Angeles. And he loved to get with some of his baseball buddies. And this particular year, it was Fred Haney, who was then the manager of the St. Louis Browns. And they would hobnob with the movie stars that really filled the stands for horse races at Santa Anita. Well, a sports writer in Los Angeles took advantage of this to write his column as an open letter to Larry McPhail. And he started really buttering him up. I'm writing you this letter because I consider you far and away the most brilliant mogul. And he went on to say, you've been looking for a heavy-hitting outfielder. Let me tell you about Kenny. You certainly can use him. And he concluded his column by saying, baseball needs new vitality, new faces. Let's stop being ostriches and face a few facts. How about being just plain sensible? Well, to see Larry McPhail's papers years many years later was to realize that he was the last guy who was really going to consider integrating big league baseball at that time. The next came in 1943. And of course, in 43, America was at war. And some of the biggest named players in the big leagues, Bob Feller, Hank Greenberg, were serving their country. But the minor leagues were struggling. Well over 1,400 minor league players were off in the service. Not just teams, but entire leagues folded during the war. And those that remained struggled to find players. And on the eve of spring training, several Pacific Coast League teams announced that they only had 17 players under contract and they were searching for more. Well, a couple of sports editors at black newspapers in Los Angeles, the Eagle and the Sentinel, they approached the men running the Hollywood Stars and the Los Angeles Angels with an idea. They had a solution to their problem, Kenny Washington. And they also offered a list of Negro League players who were working in some of the aircraft factories and the munitions plants in Southern California, guys who either at night or on the weekends would be able to join up and play with the Stars or the Angels. And the Stars, their manager dismissed that out of hand. He had no interest in adding a black player to the ball club. But the Angels, surprisingly, Pance Rowland, their business manager, said, yeah, we'll give Kenny Washington a look. And this generated a lot of enthusiasm in Los Angeles. But as spring training was about to begin, they hadn't heard any response from Rowland. And so one of the sports editors got back in touch with him, and he said that he had touched base with his manager, Bill Sweeney, and Sweeney wanted no part of it. He said they had enough players, they were fine, and he didn't want to bring in Kenny Washington. Now, the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles took up the matter, and they were really upset about this denial of opportunity. And they pointed out that the Pacific Coast League was an ideal place to begin such a movement, that hotels and the ballparks had no separate seating, and there wasn't discrimination. In fact, Washington and Robinson, during their time at UCLA, the school never had a problem with hotels in other cities where the team played, and that they felt that this would be an ideal opportunity in the Pacific Coast League to integrate baseball. They pointed out that Kenny Washington was a fine person to be that guy, and they unanimously voted a resolution that deplored the discrimination, and they asked baseball to put an end to it. Did not happen. And then in 1945, in October of 1945, at the behest of the Brooklyn Dodgers, their farm team in Montreal, signed Jackie Robinson. And Branch Rickey had made public that Jackie was not going to be the only black player that they signed. He was going to sign two for the 1946 season. They would be teammates there with the Montreal Royals. Jackie immediately lobbied Rickey to sign Kenny Washington. And just a few weeks after he himself signed, he told the New York Daily News that it was going to happen, that Kenny was going to take his first serious crack at baseball in 1946 and would be his teammate in Montreal. And Wendell Smith, the Hall of Fame sports writer, sports editor of the Pittsburgh Courier, he was a confidant of Rickey's because he covered the Negro Leagues and knew the players very, very well. And he sent this letter to Branch Rickey a few weeks after Robinson signed. And he pointed out that Rickey had made a commitment that he was going to sign a second black player. And he said in his letter, I am suggesting very seriously that you consider Kenny Washington. I understand he is much better than Robinson. So why didn't it happen? Well, it was the last week of January 1946 when the Dodgers finally made contact with Kenny Washington. Kenny's told a sports writer in Los Angeles, I answered no because I had other plans. Well, what were those other plans? Well, about 10 days before he was contacted, the Rams had announced they were leaving Cleveland and the team was moving to Los Angeles. Their general manager, when he came out to Los Angeles to arrange a lease deal with the Coliseum, he also met secretly with Washington. And at his kitchen table, they agreed to a contract. And Washington was told to keep it under wraps. They wanted to announce it when the management of the Rams all moved to Los Angeles a couple of months later in March. And in fact, the day after the general manager and the head coach and many people who worked in the front office arrived in Los Angeles that March of 1946, the Rams held their first press conference, and it was to announce the signing of Kenny Washington. And Washington explained years later, as a man of my word, I had given the Rams my word. As much as I wanted to play baseball, I could not go back on my word. So Washington, throughout his rookie season in the NFL with the Rams, baseball continued to dog him. throughout that 1946 season, late in the season, headlines came out that he was once again going to be signed by the Brooklyn Dodgers. And this time, the source of the story was Leo DeRocher. And in late October, after the World Series in 46, DeRocher came to Los Angeles and he told a sports writer, John B. Old of the Examiner, that the Dodgers were going to sign Washington and he would spend the 1947 season in Montreal. But it didn't happen. And the reason for that was Washington suffered a pretty severe left knee injury. And the Dodgers scouts, even though for many, many weeks, articles like this popped up in newspapers all around the country, that the Dodgers were going to sign him any day and that he would play in 47 in Montreal. Ultimately, as spring training arrived, DeRocher revealed that it wasn't going to happen. And the reason was Washington's knee. As DeRocher said, his knee was on the bum. So Washington played 3 seasons in the NFL, and the final game of the 48th season, he retired. They had a big celebration at halftime of that game. And as soon as that game was over, baseball stepped up its pursuit of Kenny Washington once again. The first pursuer was none other than Bing Crosby, who was a part owner of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And Crosby offered Kenny a contract to come play for the Pirates that season. And had he accepted and pursued it, he would have been the player to integrate the Pittsburgh Pirates. The San Diego Padres in the Pacific Coast League offered Washington a contract for 1949. They had, in the previous season, 1948, integrated the Coast League with the catcher John Ritchie on the right. And in 1949, Ritchie would also have Luke Easter and Minnie Minoso there as teammates. It wouldn't be Kenny Washington, though. He would not be part of that group. And the reason was Hollywood called. And Washington, who was immensely popular in Los Angeles, had agreed to act in 3 movies. He appeared opposite Burt Lancaster in Rope of Sand. He played the role of a doctor in a very controversial but very award-winning film called Pinky. Gene Crane and Ethel Barrymore were both nominated for Academy Awards. And then the last film he did, he had a small speaking part in the Jackie Robinson story. In fact, before filming began, a reporter asked Robinson if he was nervous because he was going to play himself in the film, the first time he'd ever acted. And the reporter asked Jackie if he was nervous, and Jackie laughed and said, "Oh, if Kenny can do it, anybody can do it. I'll be fine." But through it all, Kenny announced that when he finished with his commitments, he was going to play baseball. And he spent 2 solid months, 5 days a week, several hours a day, training at a park not far from the Coliseum in Los Angeles. And ultimately, just before spring training, the New York Giants stepped in and Leo DeRocher signed Kenny Washington. It was a difficult situation. It got tons of attention. It was a big, big story going into spring training in 1950. But Washington had a lot of obstacles. He was 31 years old, the oldest rookie in any spring training camp. He had had 5 knee surgeries. And as you guys all know, knee surgeries back then in the 30s and 40s were not what they are today. They were very highly invasive. He had not played competitive baseball in 5 years. During the war years, he joined the police department in Los Angeles, and he played on their team against a lot of military teams that had major league players on the teams. In fact, one of those games, he went against an Army-based team that had Joe DiMaggio, and they made a big deal that DiMaggio had a couple of singles in that game, and Kenny had a couple of home runs in the game. But when the season began, when spring training began, DeRocher had made very clear that of his 8 positions, 7 of the starters were set. The only open opportunity was for the right field job, and he had 8 players competing for 7 outfield spots. Kenny was going to battle Monty Irvin and Don Mueller for the right field job. In an inter-squad game and several inter-squad games, Leo DeRocher fell in love with Kenny Washington's bat. He had a tape measure home run in their very first inter-squad game. So when the exhibition season began, Kenny Washington opened it as the starting right fielder for the New York Giants. And this was their outfield in their first couple of games. They went down to Tucson to meet Cleveland, and they had Monty Irvin on the left, who played center field in those games. Hank Thompson in the center was the left fielder, and Kenny Washington was the starting right fielder. And the media made a big deal about it because the Giants had 3, Cleveland had 4 black starters, and they suggested that this was the most black starters who had ever been in a big league game. But Kenny went hitless in the games in the series with Cleveland, and following that, DeRocher wanted him to get as many at-bats as possible, so he assigned him to the Giants' B team. And most of those games were against B teams of other big league clubs that were training out west, and also Pacific Coast League teams. When they came out west, they finished spring training. The B team had 4 games in Southern California. And in the game with USC, Kenny hit a grand slam and a 2-run triple, had 6 RBIs, his biggest day in the exhibition schedule. But a day or two later, DeRocher sat him down and broke the news that he was not going to break camp with the big league club. And DeRocher said, make no mistake about it, Kenny can really wrap that ball. Nobody has worked any harder in camp than Kenny. I was disappointed in his throwing. Football must have tightened up his arm and shoulder muscles. Well, the Giants and an anonymous scout who watched him throughout spring training just said all those years in football simply took too much out of him. What the Giants wanted to do, though, is they wanted to put him at Jersey City, at their farm club in Jersey City. But Washington declined. He had a young family. And he said, if I'm going to play in the minor leagues, I would prefer that it be for a team on the West Coast. So DeRocher recommended him to Pacific Coast League clubs. And it was the Los Angeles Angels. The night before opening day, they stepped up and they signed Kenny Washington. Washington began the season pinch hitting. And then toward the latter third of the month of April, he became the Angels' starting third baseman. Late in the month, he suffered a pretty severe spike injury. He was covering the bag on a stolen base attempt and was badly spiked on his thigh and went on the shelf for a number of weeks. And at that time, the Angels, they had to cut their roster down to 22, the way the Pacific Coast League operated at the time. And they told Washington they wanted to send him to a lower level just to really get the rust off of his bat and get him hitting again. And Washington said, I'm 31. It's probably time to get on with my life. And he chose to retire from competitive sports. So he became a business executive. He worked in the wholesale liquor industry, was vice president of the largest distributor in Southern California, and then was recruited and became vice president of the largest wholesale liquor distributor in the United States. In 1956, he was inducted into the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame. And Walter O'Malley, when the Dodgers came west, recruited Washington to help the Dodgers as an advisor. And when the Dodgers signed Willie Crawford, which was a big deal in the early 60s, Crawford's family made it known that, I mean, legend is that Tommy Lasorda, as a young scout, had a lot to do with this. But Crawford's family made it clear that it was Kenny Washington and the relationship that Washington built with the family and the times he brought them to Dodger Stadium and wined them and dined them in the stadium club that persuaded Willie Crawford to become a Dodger, even though a number of other organizations offered much more money. Kenny Washington passed away in 1971. He had spent most of the last 2 years of his life in hospitals with an incurable heart-lung disease. This plaque is in the peristyle end of the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. And as you can see at the bottom, it reads, an All-American for all America. Some of his teammates that played baseball with him and saw him play, they pondered for years about Kenny in baseball, where Washington could have gone in pro baseball as something to contemplate. He was definitely a victim of baseball's color line, said his former UCLA teammate Al Martell. Open to your questions, open to having a bit of a gab fest. I appreciate the opportunity to share that with all of you and to tell you a lot more there about Kenny Washington. Thanks very much.
That was tough competition. Yeah, against the Giants outfield, but they had those 3 guys. Of course, Willie was coming up right behind him. But Monty Irvin in the Hall of Fame, Don Mueller, Manfred the Magician did an awfully good job hitting singles. And Hank Thompson went to jail, but that's another story.
Well, and what I've always wondered is, and Gail Henley is a good friend who was in their minor league system at that time. And I've talked to Gail about it because the first baseman on that team was handed the job. He was a rookie, and the name escapes me, Harshman. He had hit 44 home runs the year before at Minneapolis, their top farm club, and they handed him the first base job, and he failed miserably. And the next year they made him a pitcher. And I've often thought, well, if Kenny's throwing was a problem, why didn't they give him a look at first base? But we can look at that 70 years later and wonder.
I heard that, I know the Giants had the first all-black outfield, but now I'm wondering, is it Willie Mays, Hank Thompson, and Monty Irvin, or
Yes.
Kermit Washington, Hank Thompson, Monty Irvin?
Well, I don't know. When they count these records like that, I don't know that they include spring training. So I'm gonna go with the Irvin Washington Thompson outfield as opposed to the one that had Kenny Washington in it.
Then we had a speaker here several years ago. Was it Ed Brown, Bob, the first baseman? We went from Galveston, they went to Pittsburgh. And he was like gonna be the rookie of the year. He started first base for the Dodgers, but Jackie Robinson replaced him. What was the name?
Stanky.
No, that's here. But he passed away since that, he got replaced, yeah. Jackie, he's very prejudiced. Didn't like Jackie taking the spot. He was outspoken when he spoke up about it. Well, they just said it gave him the job. I just thought it was interesting because he inferred when he spoke to us that it was Leo DeRocher that was really prejudiced. And that was, they suspended DeRocher for gambling. But he inferred that it was more because he was prejudiced against blacks than it was for the gambling, because Robinson was coming up that first year with the Dodgers.
Well, all I can say is DeRocher, several writers quoted DeRocher as being a big fan of Kenny, that he saw him play football at UCLA. You know, he lived in the offseason in Santa Monica, and a lot of those, George Raft, a lot of those actors who were also huge sports fans were among his closest friends. And so he told many of the reporters that, you know, he knew Kenny well. He had seen him play football at UCLA. He was a fan. And it was really Tom Harmon, who had been Washington's teammate in '46 with the Rams, that was at a party at DeRocher's house. And he tipped him off. He said, you know, Kenny's retiring. He's done with football. And you got to think about bringing him in. And that's what kind of led to it. DeRocher never flinched. You know, DeRocher had no problem bringing him in earlier, whether in 46 or 47. So, yeah, I think the issue, the idea of DeRocher being prejudiced, it doesn't fit with his actions toward Kenny Washington.
Right, you spoke tonight, it changed my preconception about Leo DeRocher that I had from a previous week.
Yeah, he was a lot of things, but I don't think he was a bigot. He said about Willie Mays, he said, if you could cook, I'd marry him.
Yes, that's right.
He embraced Mays right away.
And Willie always talked about Leo being a father figure to him.
There's Sam Chapman that you mentioned, who played in the college leagues.
And he was in the same conference with Washington. He played at the University of California.
He wasn't the guy who with the Phillies.
No. That's the other Chapman who was from Alabama that you saw depicted in the movie, directed a lot of the epithets toward Jackie. No, this is Sam Chapman. He was from the Oakland, Berkeley area, and played for the Philadelphia Athletics.
That picture that you had of when Cleveland Rams were moving to Ogden and Kenny Washington was with the executive, it looked like it might be Gil Brandt.
It was Chili Walsh. He was the general manager. Chili Walsh was his name. And he was originally from Los Angeles, so he certainly was well aware of Kenny. And his brother was the head coach. And Kenny had, in the last, he played 4 seasons. A professional league started up right as Kenny finished at UCLA. And he signed with a team called the Hollywood Bears. And they played in a football stadium that was right next to the Hollywood Stars ballpark. And he was a huge star, sold out every one of their games. He was just an incredibly big star in Los Angeles. And so with the Rams, when they knew of him, the Walsh brothers, the general manager and the head coach, when they came in, they knew that signing him would help them at the box office. I don't think they knew how severe his knee injury was. He hurt his knee in his last game with the Hollywood Bears and had to have major surgery about 4 months before training camp.
And did Kenny ever play for the Oakland Oaks?
No. Kenny was principally raised by an uncle who was a police lieutenant and his grandmother who passed when he was in high school. And his uncle kind of served as a business manager to him. So at the time that Kenny was looking to play on the West Coast after the Giants were not going to keep him, his uncle did call the Oaks, the San Francisco Seals, and he checked things with Hollywood and with the Angels. And by that time, their rosters were pretty full. And the unions up in Oakland were really trying to push the Oaks and the Seals to integrate. And they were pretty resistant to the idea at that time. And I can't recall when the Oaks ultimately did integrate, but no, Kenny never played for the Oakland Oaks.
Why did the Rams move to Los Angeles?
Well, in Cleveland, they were playing in the old baseball park. They were not playing in the Mistake on the Lake, the massive municipal stadium. And they were playing in this small little ballpark that seated 17,000. And their 1945 team with Bob Waterfield at quarterback, they won the NFL championship. And they never sold out that 17,000 seat stadium. So their owner, Dan Reeves, had been looking for a few years at the idea of moving the team. Originally, when he bought it, he wanted to take it to New York because he was from New York, but the league wasn't going to let that happen. So he looked at Dallas, he put a deposit down on the Cotton Bowl, and then he looked at Los Angeles. And I really believe that it was the popularity of Kenny Washington, the sellouts, even when he played in Wrigley Field against the LA Bulldogs, they sold that stadium out. And I think seeing that attendance really swayed him to come to Los Angeles. So they were the first big league team to make the West Coast their home. And principally, and I think he was also concerned because the new league, the All-America Football Conference, was starting up. It kicked off in '46, and the Browns were coming together. They had hired Paul Brown to be the head coach and general manager. He was hugely popular in Ohio, and they really saw the Browns being a huge threat. They were going to play in Municipal Stadium, and Paul Brown was putting a lot of pieces together that the Rams were concerned about and thought that they were going to end up being second fiddle to the Browns. So they just figured, we're not drawing now. They're going to hurt us even more. Let's get out of Dodge.
So Dan, I had a question. Kenny's son decided he was going to play baseball.
Right.
Football. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, Kenny Jr. Was a terrific athlete, football quarterback in high school, very good outfielder. And he really wanted to be his own person. And both in high school and in college, they would offer him the number 13, which is Kenny's, which was the first number ever retired at UCLA. And he didn't want it. He didn't want his dad's number. And when it came time to choose a college, instead of going to UCLA, he chose to go to their arch rivals, USC. And instead of playing football, he chose to play baseball. And he was a very good left fielder for Rod Dato. He was all tournament. I believe it was in '59 College World Series when USC won. And he signed with the Dodgers, and he got to AAA with the Dodgers, and then ended up going to Japan for part of a season in Japan. But that was the season that Kenny passed. And so he cut his time in Japan short, came home and ended his baseball career.
Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
I was curious about his induction into that hall. Is that the NFL Hall of Fame, or is that a little bit different?
No, that's the College Football Hall of Fame. It's the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame. I believe it's in Atlanta. And I'm not sure if they've got one in Irving, Texas, a branch of it, but yeah, it's the College Football Hall of Fame. There's a lot of people talking about should he be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a pioneer. And, that's quite a debate that's been going on for a number of years.
Thanks. When Branch Rickey was considering signing a second black other than Jackie Robinson, was that Monty Irvin?
Well,
Monty used to be a member of this chapter. He said he was asked first, but he declined because of his World War II. It's really World War II. Yeah.
right. And what I had read, that after they signed Jackie, there was a lot of campaigning and a lot of lobbying within the Dodger hierarchy. DeRocher was pushing real hard, actually, for Roy Campanella. One of their coaches was pushing real hard for the pitcher they did sign. Name escapes me now.
Joe Black.
Joe Black.
No. John Wright. John Wright, he pitched for the Homestead Grays. And one of the Dodger coaches had seen him a lot he pitched in the military, and they saw him in military games and were really impressed with him. So ultimately, that's who they signed, was John Wright. Wright didn't make it through half a season at Montreal, and they ended up dropping him down to Nashua in New Hampshire. And I'm not sure if it was at that point they signed Newcomb and sent him, but they were signing a number of black players once that 46 season began, Campanella, Newcomb, and several others.
Anyone else?
Irvin definitely was was right there at the beginning too. You're right.
Who was that?
Monty Irvin definitely was there at the beginning. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Right.
Great to be with you. Hope I can be with you in person someday. But thank you all very much.
Very much, Dan. We got your book. I'm going to hand your book out to the winner of the trivia contest tonight. So,
Well, I want to hang out.
yeah, it was great. So, I mean, if you want to participate, try to win your book back. Anyway, been told that Chris has created a video for you, Mike. Is that right? We were going to show that video tonight?
Not for me.
Okay, from you about Bob Feller. The chapter would appreciate a 5-minute video about Bob Feller. The MLB Network. Okay.
When Sean Casey killed Bob Feller.
When Sean Casey killed Bob Feller.
So see if we get this to work.
Okay, a little 5-minute job. And share.
Yeah, share it. So give me 1 second.
Story, because Cece's here, we both came up with the Cleveland Indians, and he knows how big of a deal Bob Feller is. We were saying it's kind of buddies with him too.
Oh, yeah, I was talking with Feller. He kind of took me under his wing when I got there, and we had a great.
It's giving me a problem. Hold on a second. Yeah.
Being that I have brand new business cards with our logo on. I'll pass them around. Couple, I have a barcode on it.
You just spelled my name.
So Mike. So the bottom there's
Where's the QR code?
right there.
Where did they?
SABRHouston.org.
Whoa, nice.
Okay, we ready, Mike? Let's see if this works.
I have a couple minutes.
Here, we both came up with the Cleveland Indians, and he knows how big of a deal Bob Feller is. We were saying we're kind of buddies with him too.
Oh yeah, I was close with Feller. He kind of took me under his wing when I got there, and we had a great, really super close relationship.
I mean, obviously one of the greatest pitchers of all time too. So, see, remember this when back in the day when I was rookie, 98, first big league camp, like let's go. Jim Thome's first base. I'm clearly not going to make the team, but I'm like, all right, I'm having a good spring training. And one of the things was Bob Feller would come out every day, full spikes high. I think he's like 78. They're like, ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for the greatest American hero of all time. Because this guy took 3 or 4 years out of his life for World War II back in the day when men were men. You know what I mean? Like, and so they're like, let's give it up for the greatest living legend ever, Bob Feller. And the place would come, Winter Haven, Florida, packed house back then. They were selling it. Place would go nuts. Yeah. And then, we're like, this is they love Bob Feller, right? So every day a player would get picked to go catch with him. So this one day, I'm about 3 weeks into spring, 4 weeks into spring. So I was like, I gotta get out there early, show Mike Hargrove that I'm here early. I have no idea why. I was like 12:30 for a 1 o'clock game. So I come out there, and Torey Lovello, who was on his way out, I'm on my way in. Torrey's on his way out, but he's the only one I thought he was doing the same thing, trying to press Hargrove. Like, we're both. So Torrey's there, Grover's in the dugout, and I say to Grover, I'm like, hey, man, what's going on, guys? And they just introduced Feller. It's unbelievable. Place is going crazy. And he says, they said to me, hey, do you want to throw catch with Bob Feller? I'm like, why wouldn't I? I got 2 knocks in the big leagues. If I throw catch with Feller, I got 3 stories to tell for the rest of my life. That's literally what I'm thinking at the time, right? So I go out there, I got my glove, go introduce myself to Bob Feller. I'm like, hey, Mr. Feller, how you doing? I'm Sean Casey. Nice to meet you, son. You gonna throw catch me? I'm like, yeah, I am. So here we go. Packed house, Winter Haven. Boom, I throw one to Feller. Feller gets it back. He throws it to me. I get it, throw it back to him. Second throw, Troy Lavelle was like, Case, you got to clean it up, man. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, dude, you're lobbing it to the greatest American hero of all time. You're showing him up. And I'm like, are you serious? I'm showing him up? He's like, yeah, you got to throw it. Throw it to him. So I'm like, all right. Well, at the time, I kind of had the yips. And if you have the yips, you know that you got 2 speeds. You can do what I'm doing here, or you can back up a little, put a little juice on it, right? So I start backing up. I'm like, backing up. And I'm like, but you can tell Feller's like, what's this guy doing? But I'm like, I got to get the right, yardage here. Because I can't throw it medium. I'm going to spike it. So I get back to him. I'm like, all right, Bob, you ready? I look over Lavelle. You ready, Lavelle? I sling it to Feller. And he's like this. Feller's right on the money, too. I've written him right in the chest. And Feller's like this. And I'm like, and that ball's getting closer. It's 10 feet, 5 feet. He hasn't moved his glove. I'm like, what the hell is he doing? Hasn't moved his glove. Boom! Hits Feller right in the chest. He just starts shimmy shaking. He's like, I'm like, oh my God, I killed Bob Feller. I go run up. I'm looking now, 23. I'm like, oh my God, myself. Here comes EMT out of the stands. See, they're like, they come out like, Mr. Feller. I'm like, Mr. Feller, are you all right? I'm number 56. Fans like, who's 56? I'm like, inside linebacker. I'm terrible. I'm like, oh my God, I just killed Bob Feller. Grover's out there. Like, oh, what are you doing? I said, you told me to throw it harder. Bob, they're like, back it up, son, back it up. Feller's down 10 minutes, right? Now the game is about to start. Everyone comes out. Everyone's gathered around. Training staff. Tommy comes up. He's like, no one knows what happened. Puts his arm. He's like, what happened here, bro? I was like, bro. So catch Bob Feller, greatest American hero of all time. He's in the World War II for 4 years. 4 years dodging bullets and everything. He played catch with me. I hit him right in the heart. Guy's been down 10 minutes. So anyway, they get him around. He gets to his knees. Like, Mr. Feller, are you okay? I'm like, oh man, Mr. Feller, he's live. And they're like, you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm all right. What happened? What happened, Bob? He's like, well, the young man over there, he just, threw the ball a little too hard. I was golfing yesterday. He's like, I must have caught the drive early, jammed my shoulder. So as the ball was getting me, I just couldn't get it over in time, hit me in the heart. But I'm all right. He dusted himself up. They zip him off like an ambulance. Places like booing me, and I'm like, and Mike Hargrove comes up. He goes, Case. He goes, it's your lucky day, bro. Had you have killed Bob Feller, you 100% would have been released. So isn't that incredible? It's a true story.
Oh man.
I mean, first bullet point, Case, the greatest storyteller in the game. Right? That's one. Secondly, they didn't release you, but that's why they traded you.
Get this guy out of here. He kills heroes. He kills heroes.
God bless you.
He kills heroes.
All right. Fred.
Watch TV. Sorry. Traded him to Cincinnati, where he played for 15 years. He wasn't going to be that in Tony.
So now we have a trivia contest, Chris.
All right.
I have a few business cards left. It has our logo on it. If you put your camera up to the QR code, it goes directly to the chapter website. I have quite a few at home. I'll bring them.
On the advantage. I mean, that president.
What's that?
Got earn it, right? Bob owns one of his names.
I got 2 left.
That was mine.
Are you? Sure. Well, I'll bring some more next month. So. It's just one of the things we could do with the chapter logo, right, Bob? We put them on shirts, just like that.
You got the money.
We got the money?
If you got the money, they'll see.
Yeah. So I wouldn't mind having a shirt.
I learned, huh? Yeah, well, it's an envelope, so yeah. First of all, you gotta get copyrighted, which we wouldn't have a problem with. Those is. Guys have to. Machine set up, and they said it would be $75. We never make it higher before they use it. We can divide into teams.
Cardinal Publishing Group, Houston
Two or three people on the team.
Astros Biggio and Bagwell years is in print and ready for purchase. You can get it at Barnes and Noble or Costco, or you can get it through the order desk if they don't have it on the shelves yet. Also available online and will be available at some other locations as time goes on. The book is a great book, I feel, because it not only exposes the Biggio Bagwell years for what they truly were.
Okay, that's Lenny Vector's.
Okay,
Themselves, as well as Tracy.
so I'm a rookie, and I've never done this.
His youngsters.
We're gonna look at great rookie performances in the playoffs.
Only in 1960.
So I tried to make this as hard as I could. No, it's pretty easy.
Barnes and Noble or Costco.
So the first one,
It can
in
be.
1939, this rookie batted .438, set the rookie World Series record with 1.658 OPS in a 4-game sweep. He tripled to score the winning run in Game 1, homered twice in Game 3, and homered and later knocked out the opposing catcher in the decisive play in Game 4.
Good play.
That would be too easy if I gave you the play. 1939.
Rookie round.
All right. This rookie led his team to a 7-game World Series win in 1931. He scored the only 2 runs in Game 2 to even the series, scored twice more in Game 3 win, homered and drove in 4 of his team's 5 runs in a Game 5 victory, and snared his sinking liner in center to halt a 9th-inning rally in Game 7. This is not just the World Series, but we got 1983 Championship Series. This rookie pitcher became the first AL rookie to throw a playoff shutout and tied an LCS record with 14 strikeouts while allowing only 5 hits. Permitted just an unearned run in a win in the World Series, becoming the first rookie to allow 3 hits or fewer in a Fall Classic complete game since Dierker in 1919. Number 4, maybe the first Babe. This rookie started Game 1 of the 1909 World Series and delivered a complete game 4-1 victory. He went the distance in 3 consecutive 6-hitters, getting out an 8-4 win in Game 5 and coming through with an 8-0 shutout in Game 7.
Tom White question, sure.
Number 5, this pitcher worked a rookie record 40 2/3 innings in 5 1981 postseason starts. Each of his 3 October wins was huge. A complete Game 4 hitter in Game 4 of the division series, 8 2/3 innings of 1-run ball in the championship series finale, and a 147 pitch complete game in Game 3 of the World Series.
Hi, Greg Lucas here. Do I have an idea for a
Number
Father's
6, this
Day
rookie won Games 3 and 6 of the 1934 World Series.
Sure.
He allowed just 2 earned runs, 4 total runs in a pair of complete games, and singled in the game-winning run in Game 6.
You don't win.
Number 7, a rookie in 1959. This pitcher became the first player ever to first player ever to earn a win or a save in all 4 of his club's wins in the World Series. He won MVP honors after allowing just 1 run in 12 2/3 innings, including 5 2/3 scoreless frames in Game 6 to wrap up the title. Number 8, in 2020, this player had the greatest sustained playoff performance by any rookie hitter ever. He tied the rookie record with 3 home runs in the World Series and set or matched playoff standards for overall hits with 29, extra base hits with 14, home runs with 10, and total bases 64. In 2015, this rookie had a 23.41 OPS in the division series, socking key home runs in Game 2 and Game 3 victories, and a 1.250 mark during the championship series. His overall 1.705 OPS is a rookie postseason record. Number 10, in 2013, this rookie pitcher made 2 starts in the league championship series, not allowing a run while striking out 13 and 13 2/3 innings. For the entire playoffs, he won 4 games with a 2.64 ERA, allowing only 16 hits in 30 2/3 innings. Number 11, 1938, this rookie batted .400. His team became the first to win 3 consecutive fall classics. He singled in the eventual winning run in game 1, provided a go-ahead 2-run double in game 2, and homered to tie game 3 before blowing it open with a 2-run double. Number 12, this rookie was mostly a defensive replacement in the first 2 rounds of the 1996 playoffs. So he did homer and drive in 3 runs in a 15-0 rout in game 7 of the championship series. He homered in his first 2 World Series at bat, becoming the youngest player at age 19, go deep in a fall classic. Number 13, this 32-year-old rookie threw 7 shutout innings in game 4 of the 1998 championship series, then permitted just 1 run in 7 frames in game 2 of the World Series. Number 14, in 1971, this rookie pitcher won the championship series clincher, 4 2/3 scoreless frame, and entered game 4 of the Fall Classic in the top of the first with his team trailing 3-0 in the game and 2 games won in the series. He responded with 6 1/3 shutout frame and allowed just 1 hit as his team rallied. Number 15, this rookie was a September 2007 call-up and was employed as just a pinch runner and defense replacement during their first 8 playoff contests. His team won all 6 of their games after inserting him in the starting lineup, including a 4-game World Series sweep, which he batted .438 with 4 doubles, 3 in game 3. And last, number 16, in 2010, this rookie went 2-0 in the playoffs with a 2.18 ERA. He was the 5th youngest pitcher to start a World Series game, allowing 3 hits in 8 scoreless innings. We can back up to anyone if you need something repeated.
Sure. I got one. So, John Lloyd. John, how you doing over there? Sucking 3/4.
Gator Network wants to raise.
Not very good. Yeah, I predict the winner will have 4 right. Hey.
Well, you have 16, so I have 16 right answers. So
There you go, you won again.
I won again.
Wow. Go ship first. Wow. 2010, he was the 5th youngest pitcher. Oh, no. Okay. Wesley, how you doing? Terrible. You look good. Ain't good now. Yeah, I'm gonna do something about this fellow. I mean, I know who's playing in San Diego, but it was one of those. There, so much. I did those super even. Because I know you're going to go first, like, yes. Well, he ended up having 67, 68 season. So. They're all rookies.
They're all rookies.
Ooh, not out. They're all rookies. No. And I hope that's not what Eddie Lowe is. I got it zero. Go back some 6 years before he even got to play. Did it to him. Anybody on the
There's a couple of guys left.
Bob Stevens away? Hey Greg, how many do you have? Greg, look at us. Greg was asleep last time I saw him. He's pretty good on this thing. He is. He's stuck. Yeah, you a sleeper over there?
I don't think so.
You're close to ready for the answers.
That's a shot. I had answers for 11 of the 16. Very good. But I don't know if any of them are right.
Well, I think we're just going to count how many you got answers.
I couldn't come in. All right, go.
Okay. So here are the answers. In 1939, this rookie batted .438, set the World Series record with a 1.658 OPS. In a 4-game sweep, he tripled the score to winning run in Game 1, homered twice in Game 3, and homered and later knocked out the opposing catcher in a decisive play in Game 4.
DeMonte.
Charlie Keller.
Oh.
Number 2, this rookie led his team to a 7-game World Series win in 1931. He scored the only 2 runs in Game 2 to even the series. Scored twice more in a Game 3 win. Homered and drove in 4 of the team's 5 runs in Game 5 victory, and snared a sinking liner center to halt a 9th-inning rally in Game 7.
Joe Bedford.
In the 1983 championship series, this rookie pitcher became the first AL rookie to throw a playoff shutout and tied an LCS record with 14 strikeouts.
Jim Paul.
While allowing only 5 hits, he permitted just an unearned run to win a game in the World Series. He became the first rookie to allow 3 hits or fewer in fall classic games.
Jim Paul.
What a rookie.
Mike Boggs. Maybe the first Babe. This rookie started Game 1 of the 1909 World Series, delivered a complete game 4-1 victory. He went the distance in 3 consecutive 6 hitters, getting out 8-4 win in Game 5 and coming through with 8-0 shutout in Game 7. Abe Adams.
Household man. 0 for 4.
This is the easiest one of all of them. This rookie pitcher worked a rookie record 40 2/3 innings in 5 1981 postseason starts. Each of his 3 October wins was huge. A complete game 4-hitter in Game 4 of the Division Series, 8 2/3 innings, 1-run ball in the Championship Series finale, and 147 pitch complete game in Game 3 of the World Series.
Silent true blue. Oh!
This rookie won Games 3 and 6 of the 1934 World Series. He allowed just 2 earned runs, 4 runs total. Compared complete games and single in a game-winning run in Game 6.
Dizzy Dean.
Oh, yeah.
We've got it. One.
A rookie in 1959. This pitcher became the first player ever to win or save in all 4 of his clubs win the World Series. He won MVP honors after allowing 1 run in 12 2/3 innings, including 5 2/3 scoreless frames in Game 6 to wrap up.
Larry, sure. Yeah. 2.
You got one name.
That's right in your wheelhouse, right in there.
All right, leader one, close game.
In 2020, this player had the greatest sustained playoff performance of any rookie hitter ever. Tied the rookie record with 3 homers in the World Series and set a match playoff standards for overall hits, extra base hits, home runs, and total bases.
Yeah, all right. So.
In 2015, this rookie had a 23-41 OPS in Division Series, slotting home runs in Game 2 and 3 victories, and a 1250 mark during the Championship Series. Overall, was 1705 is a rookie postseason record.
Don't get confirmed.
George Springer.
Oh, so
Since another rookie was Kyle Schwarber, who's with the Phillies now. He 2015, yeah, he had a great postseason too. In 2013, this rookie pitcher made 2 starts in the League Championship Series, not allowing a run while striking out 13 and 13 2/3 innings for the entire playoffs. Won 4 games with a 2.64 ERA.
Baumgartner.
Michael Walker. Michael Walker. Had to have an Aggie in there somewhere. In 1938, this rookie batted 400. His team began the first to win 3 consecutive fall classics. He singled in the eventual winning run in Game 1, provided a go-ahead 2-run double in Game 2, and homer to tie Game 3 for blowing it open with a 2-run double. Joe Gordon. This rookie was mostly a defensive replacement in the first 2 rounds of 1996 playoffs, where he did homer and drive in 3 runs with a 15-0 rout in Game 7 of the Championship Series. He homered in his first 2 World Series at bat, becoming the youngest player to go deep in a fall classic.
Andrew Jones.
Yes. That's nice. Over here. This 32-year-old rookie threw 7 shot innings in Game 4 of the 1998 Championship Series, then committed just 1 run in 7 frames in Game 2 of the World Series.
This. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I expect. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Who said Orlando every time? Oh, 2 of them.
1971, this rookie pitcher won the Championship Series clincher with a 4 2/3 scoreless frames. Entered Game 4 of the Fall Classic and top of the first. His team trailing 3-0 in the game and 2-1 the series. He responded with 6 1/3 shutout frames. Now just 1 hit as his team rallied.
Tentacle.
Bruce Keeson.
Right. You know, I'm thinking the same thing. That's right.
This rookie was a September 2007 call-up, was deployed as just a pinch runner and defensive replacement during their first 8 playoff contests. His team won all 6 of their games after inserting him in the starting lineup, including a 4-game World Series sweep, which he batted .438 with 4 doubles.
Nelson Webb.
No.
Wow, good.
Wow.
Somebody already said this guy's name here earlier, wrong answer. In 2010, this rookie went 2-0 in the playoffs with a 2.18 ERA. 5th youngest pitcher to start a World Series game line, just 3 hits in 8 scoreless innings. Madison Bumgarner.
He's in there somewhere. It'll be great.
We'll start at 3 then.
4,
5,
And 3.
3, go to 4 next.
4,
So he had 6. I'm out. Go to 4. That's 6.
5,
I'm 6.
6, 7,
2.
16.
Yeah. That's 4.
6 plus the number. We have the winner over here.
There you go. What did you win? Look at the copy. Look. And you get to do the trivia for me. And you get the trivia.
Please, let's have it a little more undergraduate level as opposed to graduate level.
Kelly Minor, Tom 1.
Thank you, Dan. Bobby gave me these Pluckers wings. Maybe I should hand them out to everybody who participated. These 5 free wings. Dan, thanks again, Bob. Thank you. Stay tuned for next month. The speaker will be Terry Poole. Okay. If you don't know about Terry Poole, look him up. All right.
We don't know what date it is.
Yeah, the date thing is kind of up in the air. I would say about next month, bring somebody. Okay. Terry was one of my heroes growing up. When I first fell in love with the Astros, Poole was on those teams. So I will be here with a bucket of balls for him to sign. Just for me. Yeah.
I had 2 friends that won games with me at that time. One of them was a huge Jose Cruz fan. The other one was a Terry Poole fan. So I had to pick somebody else. So I picked Denny Wall.
Oh, boy.
It was down desperate. Hey, Denny had a great year. Well, I think he was the other outfielder that.
Yeah, I think that's right. How we buy the book that he's on?
You can get that on Amazon. Dan left. But yeah, you can get it on Amazon. Okay. I think 30, I think it's $36. Something like that. So anyway, I think there's a Kindle version, 34, so you might as well get that. That's all. See you next month. All right. No ball game yet. No. Yeah, the ball game hasn't even started.